Hello and welcome to AI Coffee with a little bit of a public health lens. My name is Nicholas Swope, and I'm a doctorate of public health student who is specifically focused on practical AI applications in public health, but I think that they can relate to pretty much any field. I wanted to put this together to really combine three things that I love. I love AI, I love coffee, and I also love kind of bending that area and thinking about different ways to apply it in public health. Today, I wanted to talk about a book called The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman. Mustafa is one of the heavy hitters in the field of AI. He and the rest of his team and their company created seminal AI projects such as DeepMind, which was bought by Google years ago, runs their own AI company that they started in 2022, and then also is connected to Microsoft AI. So definitely one of the thought leaders from close to the relative beginning, and they put out a really straightforward book that I wanted to grab my three key takeaways. Now, I'm going to be using public health references as that's how I relate a lot to the world. But as I'm going through and listening to those, see how well they relate to your field and what you do. So you'll see before we jump into the book, I wanted to share some of this coffee. I already pre-ground it, so you don't have to watch me hand grind it. But we have some limited edition single source coffee from Colombia. And the first three kind of main takeaways or the three main takeaways that I think are the most relevant, or at least that I connected with the most from going over the book, is the fact of accelerating technology, but particularly exponential acceleration instead of logarithmic. The second one is being able to think about AI as dual use technology, and finally institutional and readiness. So let's jump into the first one, exponential acceleration. He makes a great point in his book to really talk about the change that we're seeing, which we're already seeing in public health and in medical services and in technology and drug development, where now, because we have accessible generative AI technology for large institutions down to the individual user, we're seeing a massive rate of change or a massive force multiplier that has never been seen in the history of humanity. I know that that's a big, out there, crazy statement, but I'll stand by it. Of course, there have been revolutionary technologies in the past, the computer, the internet, other extremely important technological advances. However, the difference is that this is the first time in history that it's really able to generate its own work, generate its own code if you do any computer coding, or even if you're not a computer coder, but you do a lot of vibe coding. And so we're seeing a lot in the public health realm where systems themselves can be faster. New drugs can come to market because now they're able to be modeled in such a way that are so much more accurate and precise. Now that jumps to the very second point. So the second point from the book is the fact of dual use technology. And this is something that is talked a lot about in the field, which is the concept that AI can be both harmful and hurtful, and it's not a 1 or 0. It's really this continuum. You see that a lot in education. AI can, really kind of cut down on the educational opportunities and generate a paper for a student, which then shortcuts their learning process. Or on the other side, it can be used as a coach, as a mentor, as somebody to be that like specific tutor to help really solidify and find different ways to say a problem or explain something that normally wouldn't be accessible. It has the possibility to, well, be dual natured, be both sides. And finally is institutional unreadiness. And I think that this is where my action point comes from, and one of the big takeaways from the book, which is how to look at you as an individual, and then also you and your organization itself, and maybe the greater public health system. But if you just stay on your organization, how ready are you to respond when you need to different types of AI, both uh, helpful or harmful sides? How does that look? How are you appropriately and ethically leveraging AI within your organization so that your team members have a force multiplier for what they're doing, so that they can compress a lot of their work from days or weeks down to even hours? And on the other side, how are you getting ready for the inevitable time when there is some information that could be AI generated that is a disinformation campaign about your public health department, or it generates fake accounts, or even tries to match and mirror different types of officials within your public health agency? How are you going to have a plan that's ready to be executed when or if that does happen? So a super quick summary, the three main points that I really took from Mustafa Suleyman's The Coming Wave: you have exponential acceleration, no longer logarithmic. It's a dual use technology, which you can see everywhere, and institutional unreadiness. In the book, it's not talking about public health, but I think public health in general needs that extra kind of push, structure, and ethical formation. And then finally, is thinking about the book itself isn't necessarily about a stepwise plan or process on exactly what to do, but it is about technology, but it's really about people, which is such a core public health component and a core public health technique. It's about people, it's about how the decisions that we make today will impact generations to come. So one of my favorite quotes that I don't know who to attribute this to, but I'll say it anyways, is that if you're not creating your own path or your own direction, somebody else is doing it for you. Thank you for joining me on a little bit of AI coffee with a tiny bit of public health. I hope to see you next time.